All right, guys, here's what we're gonna do. David Griscom, have you recovered from your jet lag, buddy? Doing all right?
Yeah, I've had some coffee. Hey man, I was up at 4 today. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
The testosterone flowing.
All right, man, what do you got? And then we'll get to Malaika Jabali. She's entered the studio.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back on a story from last month where we saw that we've talked about this before on the show when it was getting close to happening, but the yield curve inverted last month. So the 3-month yield curve dipped above the 10-year yield curve, which is significant because basically it means that the people who are investing money, they're more willing to park their money into an investment for 10 years, even though it's getting a less return than a short-term 3-month investment. And that's very significant because it basically, it implies a lack of confidence in the market. And it's also something that people watch very closely because the last 7 recessions have all been preceded by a yield curve inversion. But you don't just have to go to the yield curve to see bad omens in the U.S. economy. The Fed cut their growth forecast for next year just last month as well. And in February, too, 7 million Americans were 3 months or more behind in their car payments. And it's one of these things where we're seeing the tightening monetary policy that's coming from the Fed, but we're also dealing with the fact that there's such a large amount of corporate debt that has been propping up the growth in the U.S. economy. And it's going to be a significant problem if the Federal Reserve wants to normalize its monetary policy after years of very loose and cheap money. And basically, since the crisis, we've had the Fed using monetary policy to buoy the fortunes of the wealthy and to create growth for corporate profits. It's very telling when you see what this money has been used for. It hasn't been used for increasing, the working conditions of people or even really any kind of significant innovation. It has been primarily used, 1, for stock buybacks, and 2, most money that's being spent internally has been to shore up more intellectual property. So basically a way for these...
What are we talking? Are we talking pharmaceutical property, software?
Yeah, all across the board, software, techniques, and basically...
So it's the same dynamic of there's shrinking material resources to primitively accumulate and turn into profit centers. So you need to either go to, as I said, a place like Africa that has some untapped areas to just freshly, utterly decimate and exploit. That's why there's like a neo-colonial game there. Or to create more and more and more abstraction and exoticization of financial instruments.
And you can pull in rents, and you look
this
at
type of thing, for rent economy. Right?
And then you look at basically a lot of the innovation that we've seen recently. It's been a way to find already existing economic activity, and then to find a way to extract from it. And this is just one of these things that we're going to be seeing a lot more tightness when it comes to the finance behind these corporations. We're talking about companies, we talk about a lot of these Silicon Valley companies, they are pretty much propped up by just money that's flowing into them. They're not making a profit themselves. So as we see this, the growth that came basically out of the recession came out of like loose monetary policy. And as we see that start to tighten up, we're going to start seeing more and more issues. Let's not to mention, Trump's trade war with China, Brexit, and the abysmal state of the EU economy. And just, as one last thing to sort of highlight this, Lyft's IPO flop. I don't know if anybody saw this.
I was celebrating.
Yeah.
I was happy to see that.
But it's been 3 days of straight losses. And, there's a lot of reasons that could be happening. But it's also probably that a lot of people are realizing that this business model that Lyft has had is not something that's necessarily worth jumping into, especially because the only reason that it's been able to succeed has been because there's been just such an amount of money that's just flown into the company, regardless of its actual, material and what's going on the ground in this economy. So,
are you talking down the economy right now?
I'm talking down the economy a little bit. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of negativity. That's not going to help. I just want to say for people, just to be really clear, being a patron is a very smart use of financial resources at times of
That's something
turmoil.
To be loose with.
What did you say?
Be loose with your money there.
Yeah.
It won't get
Gold and Patreon.
It might not get you an iron grip on the future of transportation apps or coordination, but
yeah,
it's still good.
But at least you'll understand why you're in the recession, and have some tasteless Nelson Mandela jokes. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.